Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Hammer Territory podcast. This is episode 172. I'm your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Sunday evening here at the end of March, and I'm joined, as I almost always am, by my co-host, Scott Coleman. Boy, Scott, this is going to be a fun one, huh?
Hello, Brad. When does opening day start for the Braves?
Monday in LA, I heard.
Okay, good. Because
Yeah.
these were all exhibitions, right? This joke of 72 hours that we just watched. Those games don't count, right? The Braves are 0-0. Is that right?
It would be nice if the Braves were 0-0. And look, at the top of the show, Scott's probably going to yell. That's okay. I'll play straight man today. Scott will play angry co-host. He's allowed to do that. We should say at the top of the show, though, in case we have new listeners, I can't imagine why someone for the first time would be finding us today. But if they are, first of all, welcome. And I mean that sincerely. Please subscribe to our podcast. We are called Hammer Territory. We are part of the Foul Territory network of podcasts, and usually it would be a little bit more positive than today's show is going to be, but the Braves just opened the season 0-4 with a 4-game sweep loss to the San Diego Padres. Now, you and I talked about this a few days ago on the show, and I'm thinking out loud, you and I both were like, yeah, all right, they might lose this opening series. It wouldn't stun anybody. The Padres are good. We play on the road. I got to be honest with you, though, Scott. I did not at any point really consider the reality of a 4-game sweep in San Diego, especially with the way that, as we'll get to many times on the show, I'm sure, the offense just completely rolling over and dying for the last 2.5 of those games. It was about as ugly as it possibly could have been.
It was pathetic. It was infuriating at times. There was the play tonight where the Braves they had a small, tiny little rally. And it's crazy that something as simple as a leadoff walk gets us all so excited. It's like, oh, here we go. This is it. The Braves are going to wake up. And promptly, the Braves hit into yet another double play. And the cherry on top was Marcell Ozuna. I don't know what happened. Overrunning second base. I don't know. He got doubled off at second base. And there was a really bad moment earlier in the series where Ozzy Albies basically didn't run out a ball and got doubled off as a result. Have some pride is what I'm saying. If you lose a game and you go all out and the other team just beats you, right? It's a hit the ball in opportune moments. That baseball's a really simple game when it comes down to it. Situational hitting, being situationally aware. And the Braves just weren't that in any of the games this weekend. It was so frustrating. I think it was the first time since 1980 that the Braves were 4 games swept to begin a season. Now, of course, you generally don't play 4 games, so that's a little bit of a obscure stat, but we're talking 45 years was the last time the Braves were 4 games swept to begin a year, and it was just a pathetic performance. And, I mean, I would love to be a fly on the wall in the clubhouse. Who's the one saying something? Who's the one saying, guys, we got to get going? Because a lot of those players are no longer with the team. Freddie Freeman, Dansby Swanson, Travis d'Arnaud, those guys aren't there. And I would love to know, and let's say this just right off the jump, Brad. There are 158 games to go.
Indeed.
There are 6 months of baseball to go. Objectively, it is still very early. A 4-game losing streak sucks, but it's 4 games, and there's a whole lot to go. It is the equivalent of the 2-minute warning in the first half of a NFL season, of a 17-game NFL season. That's where we're at in the timeline. There's so much baseball ahead. But good God, they need to wake up, because that was on national television the last 2 nights an embarrassment, and is about as bad as the Braves have played in years.
Yeah, I could certainly argue, and we did a show after the opener on Thursday, me and Sean and Steven, and that was kind of just one of those nights. I don't think the Braves were disgusting on Thursday. They lost the game. Things went poorly. We focused at the time about bullpen management. I thought that was probably the lead story of the game. They didn't play that bad on Thursday. That was a normal loss. To your point earlier, that was a pretty normal loss on Thursday. One thing went wrong, and that kind of spiraled, right? Even Friday, they were competitive on Friday. They lose 4-3, whatever, kind of a normal loss. But when those 2 games happen, you lose both of them, and then you come out and, I'm not sure we've even said it, 22 consecutive scoreless innings is where we are right now for the Atlanta Braves. 22 in a row. And this is a team that, while last year they were not great on offense, we've discussed ad nauseum, they're still built to be good on offense. That's the theory of the team, is that they have to hit. basically. And as we get into it in more detail, I could argue and probably would argue that the pitching was competitive enough in the last 2 games.
Yeah.
It wasn't great today, as we'll talk about. Smith-Shawver was not fantastic, whatever, but it's an offensive loss both today and especially on Saturday when they scored, when they lose 1-0 on a kind of a fluke, but still, you got to score runs at some point. This other stat, you mentioned the 1980 stat. The other one that was making the rounds was that, I think this came from Bowman, the last time the Braves scored 7 runs or fewer in a 4-game series of any kind, was 2017, June 2017, which you and I were talking about baseball in 2017. That was a bad baseball team. This is not that. This is not supposed to be that team. You're coming into the season with the second highest projected win total in all of Major League Baseball. And yeah, you're not 100% healthy right now, but only one of your bats is not playing right now. He's your best bat, but it's one guy. That doesn't excuse anything here. So I'm wired to, at some point on this podcast, I'm definitely going to come back and give you the 10,000-foot view, like everybody take a deep breath. I'm going to do that because it's just what I'm going to do. But I'm with you. It was maddening. And I mean, the cherry on top of this one, they sent 27 batters to the plate on Sunday. 27 batters is the minimum you can send to the plate in a game, Scott. I'm not sure if you know, 9 times 3 is 27. 27 up, 27 down. It wasn't a perfect game. They had 2 base runners, but they were both erased. It is really hard to send 27 to the plate in a game. And look, Nick Pivetta is pretty good. He's not Shohei Ohtani. You know what I mean? He's not, pick your favorite pitcher. Nick Pivetta is good, but it's pretty shameful to not have anything going. And Saturday was even worse because Saturday was against their 5th starter, like a nobody plug-in because Yu Darvish was hurt. So we'll rant and rave, I'm sure, even more. But man, it's the only topic to lead the show is the offense did not score for 2.5 games, and it wasn't just a bunch of loud outs. Yeah, they were a little bit unlucky. If you want to argue that, sure, but man, it's tough to take any of that.
Yeah, I think the Braves had 3 or 4 baseballs all night tonight that were above 100 miles an hour of exit velocity. They didn't hit anything against Nick Pivetta. And you mentioned Saturday night's game against Randy Vasquez, who barely made the team. He was almost sent to AAA for San Diego. He's filling in because Yu Darvish is hurt. They got shut down not only by Randy Vasquez, who had a 5 ERA last year, but the Padres bullpen was completely off, wasn't available because they used them in games 1 and 2. Imagine that, your manager using your best relievers in games 1 and 2 of the season. That's another conversation.
For more on that, listen to Thursday's show.
That's right. Yeah. We will not pick at that scab anymore. I'm not sure how long Hector Neris is going to be on this team, Brad. But
we'll come back to that.
If this was Friday night and the Braves had just gotten mowed down and shut out for 18 innings by Michael King and Dylan Cease and the A-plus guys in the Padres bullpen, which is very good, that's different. But to get mowed down for 22 innings, largely against Randy Vasquez, Nick Pivetta, and the B squad of the Padres bullpen, that's inexcusable and really just so disheartening and frustrating, and pick your word of choice. Just unacceptable, quite honestly.
Yes, okay. That's a good rant to begin the podcast. We're going to get into some details as the show goes along about what happened on Friday, on Saturday, and Sunday, some news at the end of the podcast. We're even going to do one positive segment about a player, and spoiler alert, that player is Spencer Schwellenbach. But before we get to all of that, and I promise you, there's so much to cover on today's podcast. Stay tuned. A word from our partners on the show. All right, Scott, let us dive in again just to what transpired. Where do you want to begin? Do you want to talk about Sunday just a little bit more? Because we're already here. Nope. It's Sunday night. I mean, I know you don't want to, but this is what we do. We're professional podcast. Well, not professional, semi-professional podcasters-ish. Look, you mentioned the Ozuna thing already. I think we all knew kind of how this game was going to go when the first batter of the game was a didn't mean to check swing double against AJ Smith-Shawver. Now, again, we already led this point. We'll say it one more time. This was an offense loss. Don't get me wrong, but it was very funny or deeply ironic, whatever you want to say, about the game starting off with a 66 mile an hour ridiculous double after what happened the previous day when the Braves lost. The only run of the game was scored in similar fashion. Maybe kind of a, I don't know, forbearance of what was to come. It was just, I don't know. I got nothing, Scott. That's all I have. It was like, all right, well, that happened to start the game.
We need to borrow Dansby Swanson for a day so he can come in and sage the clubhouse and the team plane and maybe all the bats and the baseballs and the gloves and, I mean, everything. Because it was just one thing after another. And I think two things can be true. One, the Braves played like crap for a large majority of the weekend. The other part was there was just a ton of fluky bad luck. That the inside out check swing, accidental double down the first base line tonight to start the game. I just kind of laughed. I was sitting on my couch and I think everyone just kind of let out a laugh. It's like, of course, why wouldn't Fernando Tatis Jr., one of the best players in the game, check swing a double down the line and then score about 90 seconds later? It was just very on brand. And because this lineup has struggled so much, looking back on it, I mean, even one run tonight was the nail in the coffin. But we're back to the 2024 vibe of the other team scores a couple runs early and you start looking around like, is this game in trouble? And it's crazy to say that after this team routinely put up 5, 6, 7, 8 runs basically every night in 2023 with a lot of the same players.
Speaking of 2024 vibe, this is not scheduled, but I just pulled up the team stat page for the first 4 games. Now, you might imagine it's pretty ugly stuff. The only player currently on the Braves roster with over a 679 OPS through 4 games is Marcell Ozuna, the only guy who hit last year. Now, granted, this time around, it's only because he's walking. Ozuna has 7 walks in 4 games. He's not done anything at the plate other than walk, which is walking is good for the record, but they're not pitching to him because the guys behind him, Michael Harris and Ozzy Albies, have done nothing thus far. Nobody's doing anything. I mean, we're not batting average guys on this podcast, I got to say, but there is not a single player on the roster with above a 222 batting average right now through 4 games. And that's Ozuna, 222. 200 for Jurickson Profar. Everybody else is in the 100s other than Baldwin and Harris are sub 100. And we'll talk about Baldwin later. He's actually been pretty okay in one of the brighter spots so far. But I mean, that's what it is. The only thing else that I want to say about Sunday, and then we'll move on. Smith-Shawver wasn't terrible. Now, he wasn't good. I think that's worth acknowledging. Like he only allowed 2 runs in 4 innings. If that's all you knew, that's solid, right? The that's not it's a mid-4s ERA. You'll take that. I don't think he pitched as well as that indicates, which is why, and this is a process show, we like to talk about the nuance of this stuff. Would you? Okay, I'll just ask you this way: if you knew exactly what he was going to give you today, would you have thumbs up on that, thumbs down on that, or somewhere in the middle?
Probably somewhere in the middle. I thought AJ's stuff was good. That changeup and splitter, it's kind of a hybrid pitch, was nasty. Yep. He was getting really, really, really ugly swings on that thing, which is great to see. But it's pretty clear that AJ is still learning how to, 1, work off his fastball and command that fastball, and 2, throw his breaking pitches even closer to the zone. There were a ton of breaking balls that were a foot before the plate. And big league hitters are not even going to look at that. I mean, they'll know instantaneously to keep the bat on their shoulder. So I thought it was something to build from for AJ. It is worth saying this is a good lineup for San Diego, especially the top 6. But, I think it's something for him to build on. And I'm curious to see now. I think AJ's next start will come against the Miami Marlins at home. Obviously a big, big, big step down in competition. But yeah, I didn't see anything from AJ tonight that had me concerned, but he is going to have to learn how to throw strikes and even just waste balls a little better, because clearly, I mean, he was on the ropes in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th innings tonight.
Yeah, I think that I was not terribly surprised by what I saw. I think, including us, people got very excited about AJ in spring, which is fine. I think his stuff's really good. You saw that. You already made that point about the changeup. Looked great. I just think that my general expectation for him is fairly modest right now in major league games against good teams. To your point, it's a good offense that he's facing. If he's facing Miami, it's different. But he also didn't lose in the game. And even then, the first run that he allowed, we already made fun of, was really not his fault. He gave up one hard hit ball in the first inning. That was a rocket double by Machado. That's worth saying. But, it was more that he couldn't find the plate sometimes. He had the 3 walks. Like, I don't think he didn't get them beat today, which is all you can really ask for from your 5th-ish starter this early in the season for, 21 years old. Like, I thought he was a C- today, or whatever, how you want to say that, somewhere in the middle, and that's not a huge issue. You mentioned Hector Neris, who we talked about a little bit on Thursday's show. I didn't blame him on Thursday because I thought he should have been in the game on Thursday, which was one of our lead topics on Thursday. With that said, he was available to sign in, mid-March, early March with the Braves and a minor league deal. He's in his mid-30s. He came in, largely in mop-up. Like, they were only down by 3. It wasn't over. But clearly Snit treated the last 3 innings of this game as if they were over, essentially, which I didn't love, but alas. You mentioned this just in passing. I want to ask you, is this would you be surprised if Neris was DFA tomorrow territory? Has he looked that bad to you, or is it just a situation where it's he's clearly your 8th guy and we'll see what happens?
I don't think he's going to be DFA'd tomorrow on Monday or really anytime in the immediate future, but I think it's a small sample. Everything we're talking about tonight is a small sample, but I would say that Neris is the early leader in the clubhouse to be DFA'd when Craig Kimbrell is ready to go in a couple of weeks. Again, two appearances for Neris, but he only had 3 appearances in spring training and didn't look very good. He only had 1 strikeout in those 3 appearances, and he's pretty much a split finger only guy at this point. When they signed him, I was honestly surprised that Neris seemingly had a job, almost no questions asked.
Yeah.
There was nothing in the spring from Neris that I saw in the couple games where he pitched where it's wow, okay, we got to get that in there. I mean, even Aniel De Los Santos, who was kind of a similar periphery type who found himself having a job, his stuff was good. The numbers were good. He was getting swing and miss and strikeouts. Neris was just kind of handed the job, which, again, baffles me. I will never understand exactly what they're thinking with the bullpen. Maybe they think that Kimbrell is going to be good. Maybe they're planning on putting Grant Holmes in the bullpen or AJ Smith-Shawver in the bullpen at some point. We'll see. I mean, it's a storyline for the next 6 months, but when Neris comes in, he just, in 5 appearances now after a bad 2024, I have seen quite literally nothing that makes me think he's going to be effective.
I agree. The other guy, Jose Suarez, came in, and the first 2 innings actually looked pretty good. We've kind of piled on, and I think some of his StatCast numbers, some of his numbers the last couple of years have been pretty ugly, which was covered a lot on the show that was reacting to the Ian trade that our colleagues Steven and Sean did. Suarez looked good in his first 2 innings. I think he got 2 or 3 ground balls, struck out 3. I made vague reference to this earlier, but it's been a long theme of the show that Snit tends to manage games like he's down 7 when he's down by 2 or down by 1, and he did that here with throwing Suarez a 3rd inning. And I understand. In fact, my mentions told me right away, Scott, that the Braves were never going to score 2 runs anyway. Which, hey, I understand. I'm not saying they were going to score 2 runs, but taking out all the nihilism, I thought that was a mistake. Did it change the game? Maybe not. But I don't want to blame Suarez for the 3rd inning not going well, is what I would say. I still don't think he's going to be very good if I had to guess right now, but I was mildly impressed with what I saw.
Yeah. He gets a big pat on the back for covering 3 innings tonight, saving the bullpen. God knows the Braves are going to need their bullpen the next 3 days against the Dodgers in that juggernaut of a team.
They certainly saved it starting on Thursday. Starting on opening day, they saved the bullpen, baby. That was the headliner of the weekend, I have to say. On the bright side, Scott, you were busy watching. Actually, I think you were working too, in addition to watching your college basketball team. But you don't have to talk about that game. That's a small win for you.
I genuinely hope this is not going to be a theme of the entire season, Brad.
I agree. And that's a little bit, unfortunately, that's what Steven said on Thursday and Sean said on Thursday. It was hey, I hope this is not the same podcast we're doing. And it's still the same podcast we're doing 3 days later. But hey, things can change. Let's talk about Friday briefly before we move on. I do want to be a little bit more positive about, again, one singular player in just a few minutes. The Friday's game, they never led They only lost by 1 run. What did you make of Ronaldo Lopez? Because there was lots of takes about Ronaldo Lopez during, after, even before the game. And the end numbers didn't look terrible, but a situation where I think people that watched the start were less impressed than the box score indicated.
So Ronaldo Lopez threw 95 pitches. He got 3 swings and misses and 1 strikeout. That's not good. The velocity in the very early going was down too. I was a little nervous, but after a while, Ronaldo really started to tick up the velocity, had a fastball touch 98 a couple of times. So I'm wondering if he is pulling back on his velocity a little bit, especially early in games by design. But 95 pitches and only 3 whiffs is genuinely concerning. There was some talk online that maybe he was tipping his pitches a little bit. I didn't pick up on anything.
Yeah, I didn't either, but it was out there enough. I don't know if that was just people trying to assign something to explain it. And the velocity did get better as the start went along. Like maybe he got loose, and as we'll talk about later with Schwellenbach, like most of the time, if a guy's velocity is different early in the year, it's usually on the lower side versus the higher side. Guys are not like fully ramped up at this point in time. You'll see a lot of guys don't pitch beyond the 5th this early in this, even if they're pitching well, because they're not 100% ramped up to throw 100 pitches or whatever.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's it with Ronaldo. But yeah, I agree. Like 3 swing and misses was a double take number. I was like, wow, is that really the number? And it was.
It felt like San Diego's hitters were just sitting fastball, and Ronaldo was having trouble locating the breaking ball. So we'll see. It's just one start. Again, it's just one game, but it was not necessarily an overly encouraging start for Ronaldo, especially after a pretty pedestrian spring training. But of course, we're going to have to evaluate and see how he looks, presumably on Wednesday. I believe he's set up to start game 3 of the Dodger series, which is going to be really tough. But then he should get some easier starts under his belt and hopefully kind of settle in. And I don't know if anyone really expects him to be the 1.99 ERA guy that he was a year ago, but it seems like Chris Sale is going to be good. We're going to talk about Schwellenbach, but I mean, Schwellenbach is an ace in the making. And then presumably they're going to get Spencer Strider back soon. So even if Ronaldo is a really good 4, this team is going to be in good shape with the rotation. It's just a matter of hoping that was just kind of a blip on the radar and his stuff is a little bit better moving forward.
And that is what Lopez was signed to be. It's been forgotten because he had such a low ERA, was an all-star last year, but that was not what he was supposed to be coming into last year. And I think he didn't pitch, like his peripherals were not quite that level anyway. So we'll leave it there for now. We'll get into Saturday's game in some depth. Later on in the show, we'll also get to some news that popped up over the last few days. All that's coming up in just one moment after a word from our partners on the show.
FT fam, I hope you have as much confidence as Penelope right now, who is an avid Spot and Tango fan, okay? And she uses the code FOUL, Kratz, because this is a personalized dog food subscription service that prevents you, of course, from going to the store to pick up the food, and she just gets the highest quality unkibble. That is what they're known for. And I know you love the quiz part of it, too.
It's a super quick quiz, but it lets you give them the information and they tailor it to what is needed based on their age, size, activity level, all things that are custom for each and every one of your dogs.
Yeah, human-grade ingredients in that unkibble. USDA meat, fruits, and veggies that are approved there. No artificial stuff, no preservatives. They've got the exclusive deal for the FT fam for a limited time. Go to spotandtango.com/foul. Use code FOUL to get 50% off your first order. That's spotandtango.com/foul. It's spotandtango.com/foul, code foul.
All right, Scott, let's discuss Saturday's game and hold the bright spot for just one moment about Saturday's game. First, the ugly stuff from Saturday. We talked about it a little bit before, but in some ways it was almost a better embodiment of what's happened so far this weekend than Sunday's game was, because the only run that scored for either team in the game on Saturday happened because of the following things. With 2 outs, a comebacker hits Aaron Bummer in the foot and rolls all the way into the dugout so that it's an automatic ground rule double without leaving the infield. That's one thing that happened with 2 outs and nobody on base against, by the way, the unluckiest pitcher in the world, Aaron Bummer. Then, after an intentional walk that I actually kind of hated, but we won't talk about right now because this is not a playoff podcast. Then literally like a 70-mile-an-hour dribbling ground ball from former Braves farmhand Yuli Gurriel through the hole between third base and shortstop. Gets right by Arcia for, again, the only run, the go-ahead, the winning, the only run. Another offensive disaster on Saturday, but I thought that was just incredible. That was the only run that scored in the game.
It was just so frustrating. Even the official MLB account said something like, have you ever seen this before in a baseball game? For a ball to hit Aaron Bummer's foot perfectly and then roll into like the 5-foot wide dugout opening to make it a ground rule double.
And how many balls hit off of off of fielders this weekend that went straight to other fielders? Like the Braves probably had at least 3 ground balls that carried them right to a fielder this weekend. And granted, that happens sometimes, but the juxtaposition of those happening and then this one happening to put a runner on second base. Oh man, my head hurts already. It's March 30th. Why does my head hurt on March 30th?
It was somehow perfect because you mentioned Yuli Gurriel hit a 12 bouncer into the shortstop hole that got just under Orlando Arcia's glove. If the ball's hit harder, the runner probably doesn't score because Profar comes in and it would be tough to score on a ball to third base.
Yeah.
So bases are loaded. I mean, the inning would have continued, but at least the winning run doesn't score. If the ball was hit a foot or two to the right, Arcia probably gloves it. If it was hit any softer, Arcia probably gloves it. It was just, you could not roll the baseball out there better than what Gurriel did after a ball ricochets off Aaron Bummer's foot into the dugout, then the intentional walk. And again, man, a one run should not be the difference. I feel like this is a podcast from July 18th, 2024. I swear to God, we've done this show before, Brad, where there was some nonsense that gave the other team a run or two, and the Braves couldn't do anything about it. It's just such a frustrating. I would almost rather lose these games like 10-0 and just be like, you know what? It is what it is, than lose a 1-0 game in the most annoying way possible.
I agree. I think as much as maybe it builds on each other so that Sunday's result was the most frustrating because we were just already worked up about it, right? It's a sweep and all those things. But the most maddening individual game was Saturday to me anyway. Like the way they lost Saturday's game, even before that, they had 2 just terrible double plays on first pitch swings when the Padres couldn't find the plate, and then they bailed out with double plays. With runners in scoring position, Matt Olson hits a near home run that should have probably been a home run. It wasn't. It was like 6 inches short of a home run, like just right there, maddening. And then of course the stat that everyone was sharing that's stopped being shared now, because by the way, it's still true because today they didn't have anybody in scoring position the entire game, not one plate appearance. So they're still 1 for 22 with runners in scoring position for the season so far. It was the same yesterday that it is today. But look, I think I tweeted this. I know I put it in our notes. Nothing else. Throw everything else out the window. If all you know about a team is that they're 1 for 22 with runners in scoring position, they're probably losing those games, or at least most of those games. Like you can't just do that. And there's variance involved there. I'll be the first to say that. This is where I start giving my context that I always would give, Scott. But 1 for 22 is like you're going to lose. Like unless you're hitting a bunch of home runs that aren't, you're just in trouble.
It is almost a copy paste of everything that plagued the team a year ago. And I thought you and Steven and Sean did a great job on the opening day podcast about everything that concerned you going in kind of reared its head in that opening day game against the Padres on Thursday. The one big concern that this team had offensively a year ago is if they did not hit home runs, they really struggled to score. Situational hitting was really bad. On base was a struggle. They didn't get on base at the level they should. And through these first 4 games, and especially over the weekend, it was pretty much more of the same. They had a home run from Ozzie, and they had a home run from Riley, and they had a home run from Kelnick. And other than a duck fart that went inside out off of Marcell Ozuna's bat that got past the second baseman for 2 runs on Friday night, I mean, that's basically it for the offense. That, and then there was Ozzie Albies had the bases loaded on opening day, basically hit into a double play and beat the throw by a millisecond.
Yeah.
There was none of it. And that was such a problem and frustration a year ago, even with all the injuries. And this team is mostly healthy. That's what's just so frustrating. And let's hope it's just one bad weekend in San Diego. If the Braves played this series in San Diego in July and the team was 10 games above 500, yes, we'd be frustrated, but you can probably chalk it up to, okay, it's the West Coast, good team, stuff happens in 50-50 games, all that. But because it's opening weekend, I mean, it was just a perfect storm of all the bad things we didn't want to see, and somehow they appeared, and now I think the panic level has gone up probably more than it should after just 4 games of a season.
We agree. The panic level is too high right now. I'll get yelled at for saying that. That's fine. The panic level is too high. It's just what it is. I expect. By the way, it's expected and also understood. That's not me judging anybody. Everybody's frustrated. I'm frustrated too. I know I'm too cold sometimes, if nothing else. I get that, but it's got a little bit too far. But that's the nature of the beast. We teased it, Scott. It's time for our one and only positive segment of this podcast, and it comes to everybody. It's brought to you by the folks at FanDuel Sports Network. You can now stream Braves games, and we'll tell you more about that in just one moment. But Spencer Schwellenbach is the player spotlight on a segment of this podcast. And very clearly the best, brightest thing of the weekend was Schwelly. He lost, he quote unquote, they didn't win the game. Was not his fault. He was absolutely brilliant. 6 innings, 1 hit, 1 walk, struck out 4. You already called him an ace on this podcast, so I know how you feel. But what did you make of that performance? Because he deserved to win the game. It was just silly that they lost this game. He was just absolutely lights out, and I think we love him. This is not new to anybody that's listening to this podcast. But after last year, we're going to come out and shove, like flat out shove, in his first outing is pretty impressive.
And I think what's crazy about Schwellenbach is even though he was really good, 6 shutout innings on Saturday night, I don't even know if he had his A1 stuff.
I don't think he did.
No,
it was just crazy. But yeah.
He was frustrated on the mound a couple times where he was ahead of a hitter and tried to throw a breaking ball and it was way off the plate, or couldn't locate a fastball, or early on especially he didn't seem to have his full command. But I mean, what does it say about him? Not even a full year, not a full calendar year into his big league career, and he's almost frustrated with himself after 6 scoreless because he felt like he didn't have ultimate command and only had 4 strikeouts, and we saw what the strikeouts can be when he has everything working. He is so good. He is so impressive. And I think if we're trying to find the positives and the silver linings, that if health willing, the Braves might have 3 legitimate ace-type pitchers in this rotation this summer with Sale, Schwellenbach, and Strider. Even if the offense continues to be bad, that alone should carry the Braves for a lot of it. And then maybe the bats eventually wake up. Maybe they can get some of those torpedo bats the Yankees are using and hit the baseball for once. They got to get that overnight FedEx to them because clearly what the Yankees have going is working. But Schwellenbach, he's the man, and he's so good and so competitive. And I look every time and every 5th day Schwellenbach goes out there. It's like my favorite day of the week.
Yeah, I mean, I think you told me about this, but ESPN's Spencer Schwellenbach was talking about the torpedo bats with Drake Baldwin, I believe it was, on the broadcast on Sunday. So maybe the Braves will do that after. Hey, listen, I can almost hear every fan say, "Go ahead, please go ahead and get the torpedo bats." At this point, one more note on Schwellenbach's start that I found on Statcast: he did not allow a single barreled ball in the game on Saturday. Which means, if you don't know this, it means that no one hit the ball in the sweet spot of the bat, basically. That means he was getting soft contact the entire game, velocity-wise, none of that. He just was, to your point, without his absolute A1 stuff, still missed a bunch of bats, and no one barreled him up the entire game. So it wasn't like he was getting smoked, and it was just getting right at guys. Like he was dominating in the way that he did, despite having not have his best stuff. And we talked about with Lopez earlier, actually Schwally's fastball was up like a half tick from last year, which you wouldn't expect this early in the season. I don't know if that's going to be sustainable, but he was sitting in like that 95.5, 96 range in this game, which isn't like, 100 percentile velocity, but for a starter, that's real velocity even in the modern game. And I was impressed, man. I thought he looked great, and I felt bad for him that they lost the game, but he's
so good. Yeah, he's just awesome. It hurts my Spencer Schwellenbach Cy Young tickets that he should have gotten a win and absolutely pitched well enough to get a win. And I mean, you just hope that, it does not become a theme for this team that they're just throwing awesome starts from their pitchers in the trash. Because honestly, you said a moment ago, if we knew blindly 5 days ago that they were going to get 5 innings from Sale, 5 innings from Lopez, 6 innings from Schwellenbach, and 4 innings from Smith-Shawver, and you would just show the flat numbers that they allowed, you'd be okay with that. You'd be like, okay, they probably went 2-2, maybe 1-3, especially the Schwellenbach start. So to go 0-4 is especially frustrating. And again, man, just more of the same from last year. And I really hope they wake up, or it's going to be a really long summer.
Yeah, man. I mean, you just said this. I just pulled the number while you were talking. 4 starts. This is just a starting pitcher performance. 20 innings, 8 earned runs. So a 3.6 ERA. That's not incredible, but that's totally fine. And man, it's hard to go 0-4.
Yeah.
When that's what you get from your starters. But when you don't hit it all, your bullpen's bad, you end up there. But you're right. That is if you want to spread it out beyond Schwellenbach to the rotation to this point, that's been the best part of the team through 4 days, has been the rotation. Small bar to clear there, of course, but Schwelly led the way. He looked awesome, and we'll talk about him, of course, much more the rest of the season. We do have more news to get to on the show, and then a brief look ahead to what is, yes, everybody, the Dodgers awaiting beginning on Monday. First, though, a word from our partners there at FanDuel Sports Network. You can now stream Braves games through FanDuel Sports Network, and if you use the promo code BASEBALL30, that's promo code BASEBALL30, you can start it off with a 30-day extended free trial at FanDuelSportsNetwork.com/packages. That is FanDuelSportsNetwork.com/packages. Promo code BASEBALL30. Offer expires 5/2/25, $19.99 a month after free trial. Cancel during free trial to avoid charges. Eligibility restrictions apply. Visit FanDuelSportsNetwork.com for details. All right, Scott, let's get away from the weekend. Please, Lord, let's get away from the 4-game series. A bit of news, nothing earth-shattering, but just some updates on 3 guys who are either injured or ramping up. Strider pitched actually a rehab start on Saturday with Gwinnett. Looked good by all accounts. 3 innings, struck out 6, threw hard. Seems like he's going to make a couple more starts, but just another positive data point for a guy who we're all hoping is going to be back in, 3 weeks? Something like that, 2 weeks?
Sounds about right on the timeline. Strider threw 60 pitches. So presumably his next start, he'll throw 70, 80-ish, and then make another start and probably go 90 would be my guess. And then the Braves will probably evaluate. I'm guessing that Strider will be back after 2 more rehab appearances. But if he doesn't look great, or maybe they see a velocity dip when he gets into the 70s and 80s of his pitch count, they might have him do 1 more rehab start. But I mean, it's the end of March. It seems probable at this point that the Braves will get Strider back maybe mid-late April.
Yeah, which is, again, we teased it already a little bit about just hoping he comes back, and he's awesome, and nothing really else to add, just another positive data point along the way to recovery for Spencer. Sean Murphy is, of course, rehabbing as well. He caught actually, I think, 5 games or something like that in minor league action. 5 innings, I should say. He's supposed to, per Mark Bowman, begin a full-fledged rehab assignment this week. That's good to see from Sean Murphy. And I already hear the chorus of people that don't want Murphy to come back. I get it. There's that. There's the positive stuff for Murphy, right? Do you want to talk about Baldwin for a second? We did discuss Baldwin on Thursday after the game with myself, Sean, and Steven. The results have not been incredible from Baldwin at the plate. He didn't play one of the games because he wasn't going to play every single day. That's not realistic. We saw some Trump this weekend. But I think everyone, and I mean everyone that I have seen and trust, is like, this guy looks great to me. And the results weren't there. But, there was a little bit of the hiccup on Thursday with guys stealing bases that Snit immediately blamed on pitchers, not Baldwin, which we agreed with even watching the game. But what have you seen from him through, I guess it's only 3 games for him, but obviously looks to be pretty ready by 3 games standards.
Drake Baldwin is ready, and he still has learning to do at the highest level. But clearly this is not a kid who needs to spend 6 months in Gwinnett to keep his head above water at the big league level.
Yeah.
The question, of course, and this is the fascinating, is what are the Braves going to do when Sean Murphy comes back in probably 2 weeks? Offensively, Baldwin, you said it exactly right. He hit the ball really hard throughout the weekend. Of course, the one hit that he had was on a opposite field, 70 mile an hour doink. It's funny. Baseball's a funny game like that. And then defensively, he called a good game. I know Chris Sale has sung his praises for the work he does with the pitching staff, calling a game. And he had a couple of runners thrown out on the bases, which is good. That Thursday game, I don't know what happened on Thursday, Brad. I mean, did they forget to look at the runners or something? But
well, it was multiple guys too. And I think Steven passed along what Snit said. But yeah, it was just a bizarre – guys were getting running leads, and it was not on ball, which is that's the key thing that everyone agreed on after the game was that it was not on Baldwin, which is good. That's all I needed to hear from everybody involved. That it wasn't like a concern moving forward. And just to give the number, by the way, because I can already tell you this right now, Scott, someone's going to yell at us for saying he was good because he had a 258 OPS this week. I get it, everybody. Watch the at bats. Yeah. Even if you don't believe in that, it's not pure eye test. Like look at the batted ball data. He's hitting the ball hard. You already mentioned. I think probably his worst swing of the weekend was where he got his hit, which is hilarious. But that's just baseball for you. But we're not trying to go overboard. I'm not saying he's going to be Pudge Rodriguez, but he looks pretty good to everybody that's watching the team closely, including us and everybody else. I think.
Yeah, with the game on the line on Saturday night, Baldwin had a phenomenal at bat with 2 outs.
Oh yeah,
and a terrible strike 3 call.
It was. Yeah,
I wasn't sure how I felt about the challenge system for baseball when they announced it.
Until that pitch. Now you're in.
Give it to me right now. Give it to me 9 a.m. Monday morning press release from MLB saying effective immediately, ABS is instituted, because I'm so tired of watching these umpires just blow call after call after call, especially in the 9th inning. It was ball 4. Baldwin earned the walk. He should have walked. He should have kept the game alive.
And it would have been one of those like auto, if you didn't watch spring training, this is the new proposal. It might even come into the league next year, where it's not full robot umps. You still have umps, but like you're able to challenge a couple of calls per game. And given that this is more high leverage than that, you're down 1 run in the 9th inning with 2 outs. Like that's an auto challenge. He wins. Anyway, I'm on board with that as well. But anyway, long story short, Baldwin's going to be good. We will have the discussion when Murphy comes back about what they're going to do. And hopefully the Braves have a tough decision in that Baldwin is playing great. You know what I mean? The best case scenario is Baldwin's playing great. I'll just say this. Murphy's going to play, everybody. He's not going to not play. The decision is basically, do you want Baldwin to stay up with Murphy or go back down to AAA? I think he's overqualified for AAA. That's kind of what everybody thinks right now, but we'll see how that goes. Last update. And Craig Kimbrell threw some live BP this week, right? He, of course, was not unlike Neris, who apparently had been throwing before he arrived at the Braves, whatever it is. Unlike Chavez, who had been in a camp somewhere else, Kimbrell was on the couch. So he had no spring training, and he's doing that right now. I don't know about you, Scott. I think people, especially Braves fans that may only watch the Braves, are thinking Craig Kimbrell is going to ride in on a white horse and save them. And I'm telling you that's probably not going to happen. I'd love it for it to happen. I would love Kimbrell to find it again. I've seen people like really assigning a lot of value to Craig Kimbrell coming back, and that is really scaring me now. But hey, he might be better than Hector Neris. Probably is, I would say. There's
you, Brad Rowland, you might be better than Hector Neris.
Well, that's not true. Hector Neris is a professional athlete, and I'm not. I throw somewhere in like the low 60s if I had to guess right now. Having not thrown a baseball in quite some time, but no, I mean I'm not picking on Kimbrell. I think maybe some of it's like tongue in cheek about how I get it. The bullpen was not very good this weekend. I just want people to realize he's not Craig Kimbrell from 10 years ago. That pitcher doesn't exist anymore.
That is fair, and I think the hope with Kimbrell is that he's not used in the 9th. He's not even going to be used in the 8th.
I hope not.
He is purely a middle reliever at this point who still throws really hard, gets a lot of swing and miss on his knuckle curve. And if he can be a stabilizing force in the middle of the bullpen, then you take him for the $2 million that they paid him whenever they inevitably call him up. So, yes, it's going to help. I would take Kimbrell over Hector Neris for sure at this point, even if you remove the 2 bad appearances this weekend for Neris, I would still take Kimbrel in a vacuum over him.
I would too. And I'm just going to say that every podcast I do, maybe between now and the end of time, I'm just going to say the words Buck Farmer out loud. Don't know why he's on the team. Still, just saying that out loud. But yeah, Kimbrel, hopefully soon, ramping up. We will see. That's the end of the news, unless I think I'm looking one more time to make sure. And by the way, just as a plug, I don't work there anymore. But the first place I look for news is batterypower.com because they're going to have it. Just saying it out loud. Love our guys over there, including Scott. 3 of our 4 hosts. Right there. I'm the one that said that for the plug. Last thing. Dodger series begins on Monday. The absolute thing you do not want to do after you are swept in 4 games is go to Dodger Stadium and play 3 games. And that's what the Braves have to do. Also, some late nights, some Scott Coleman specials, a 10-10 game on Monday, a 10-10 game on Tuesday, about 8:40 on Wednesday. Sleep when you die, everybody. The Dodgers haven't lost yet, I don't believe. Is that correct? They're still on
5-0.
They won the first 2 games in Japan about 2 weeks ago. They came home and won the first 3. They were challenged. They were not blowouts. They almost lost a game this weekend, at least one of them, maybe in 2 of those games. But everyone has said that's the best team in baseball. I tend to agree. In fact, I believe I said this on the show. If not, I think I will say it now. It's the best roster I've ever seen. And I'm not exaggerating. It's the best roster I've ever seen. Doesn't mean they can't lose, and they're going to lose games. Even the best teams of all time lose games. But not what you want to see on Monday. What are you expecting when the Braves arrive? And by the way, Grant Holmes against his former team on Monday night.
If there was ever a time for the Braves to win 2 out of 3.
It would be good. Just okay, right now, would you settle for 1? I'm not kidding.
Yes, I would settle for 1.
I mean, I don't know if I would, but it's a thought. It's definitely a thought because of where they are. Obviously, you'd like to win all 3. And I would say there is a bigger chance of the Braves sweeping the Dodgers than people want to realize that there is, because baseball is baseball, and they're not going to be massive underdogs in all of these games. They're just not. I'm not expecting that to happen. I'm just saying that out loud. But I think if you polled Braves fans right now, I bet you a lot of them would say, "Yeah, I'll take 1. I'll take 1 and 6.
Yeah,
sign me up." Which is crazy, but that's where we are.
Monday's game is going to be an uphill battle. Grant Holmes is going to start. We saw him kind of weirdly out of the bullpen for an inning already, but Holmes' first start against Tyler Glasnow, who is very, very good when he's healthy.
Yeah.
Tuesday's game is actually interesting because it's going to be Chris Sale against Dustin May. That's probably a game in the eyes of Vegas that's going to be like a 50-50 toss-up. And
it's the only pitching advantage the Braves have this weekend is the game on Tuesday. And Dustin May is good, for the record. He's not Chris Sale. I looked at the betting odds right now. They don't have the game on Tuesday yet, but betting odds are up for Monday's game. The Braves are like plus 170 right now. So that's like a 35% chance to win the game, 35%. And that's with your 4th, 5th starter against not like a full-blown ace, but Glasnow's really, really good. So that's uphill battle. So yeah, I think probably 50-50-ish, at least in the betting market on Tuesday with Sale on the mound. And it's, do you think it's interesting that Sale's throwing on 4 days rest? Because that was like talked about like it was a thing. And I was like, well, I mean, it's the second start of the season. I thought he was going to pitch on Tuesday. I'm glad he is. It's just interesting.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to pitch Sale on normal rest on Tuesday night. It's still very early in the season. And while the Braves are playing 7 in a row out west, I believe between the end of the Dodger series and their next 18 games, the Braves have 4 off days.
Including Thursday. So they're off on Thursday to travel because, of course, they're not going to make the Braves play 7 in a row and then travel back and play the next day. That'd be brutal. So they do have Thursday off and a slightly earlier game on Wednesday, a 5:40 local start. But yeah, it does get easier, both schedule-wise as far as the opponents are concerned and the actual like rest schedule. Yeah. It does get easier. But if they're 0-7, that's not going to be kind to anybody. And look, it's not even a hot. If you just do the math, it's not like hot. They're going to win a game this weekend. I feel good. I feel good. They're going to win one in LA. I'd like to get 2, but I think they're going to win at least 1.
The
famous last words.
the eternal optimist, Brad Rowland. You
No,
heard
that's
it
Sean.
here
That is Sean Coleman. We only have one optimist on our podcast out of the four of us, and it's definitely Sean. But of course, Sean came in hot Thursday, and I didn't even know what to do. I got we got tweets like, why is Sean so? Oh man, Sean's negative. We're all in deep trouble. Steven is probably the other side of Sean, and you and I are in the middle somewhere. I'm probably closer to Steven. It doesn't matter. It's just if we lose Sean, it's going to be a long year. If Sean's negative, we're all in trouble. But one game at a time.
Yes,
as they say.
One game at a time. Good coach speak out of you.
Yeah,
one game at a time. Maybe the Braves will surprise us. Maybe they will wake up. If there is any kind of positive that I can spin here as we wrap up the show,
I got one.
As of
one.
Midnight on Wednesday, going into Thursday, the Braves have clearly played their most difficult road trip all year long.
That's correct.
Frankly, they probably have their 7 most difficult games done with. So not every game is going to be at the Padres, who were arguably the second best team in baseball. Not every game is going to be at the Dodgers, who have unlimited money and have $1 billion in deferrals, and they can sign whoever they want and trade whoever they want because they don't have restrictions like everybody else does. The schedule will get easier. The Braves, I think, are going to wake up. I pray they wake up. Otherwise, we have a lot of very, very bad podcasts on the horizon, Brad. But they'll get going. I said it at the beginning. I'll say it again. I would love to be a fly on the wall in that clubhouse tonight. I would hope that some of the veterans on this team, some of the very well-paid veterans on this team would say, guys, we got to get going. Losing like this on national television, getting doubled off at second base, basically getting a perfect game thrown against us is inexcusable. And let's hope in a jumping ballpark at LA at Dodger Stadium will kind of help them wake up even more, because, I mean, it was just about as disheartening of 4 games as I have watched the Braves play in a long time.
It was, and we've talked around it, but I do, and not just because of the way that I am, I do believe what I'm about to say. I'm not worried yet. I'm not. Obviously, 0-4, people are worried, and I don't blame you for being worried. I'm not yet. It is 4 games, and doesn't mean anything. It could mean something. This is like with a hat tip to our guy Steven, who tweeted this out earlier today. The Braves started 0-4 in 2021. They won the World Series. Now, that team had a lot go right for them, right? They were under 500 deep into the season. If you don't remember this, I saw some pretty revisionist history happening today about that team that I won't mention by name, but I was like, people have forgotten how like not that great that team was for most of the year. Yeah. And even like on paper, they overhauled the outfield in July, all these things. Anyway, that season they were 0-4. They were also 4-8, I believe. Like they didn't just win like the next 8. Like they were below 500 for a long time, and they won the World Series. Now, you don't want to follow that path if you don't have to. So dig out of this thing quickly. But there are numerous examples. That's just one that's convenient for us to use because it's the Braves example, and it's obviously the high end example. But starting 0-4 is not a death sentence, but you don't want to go start 2-10. You know what I mean? Like you gotta, to your point, you gotta wake up. Not the series that any of us would pick, but there's something to be said for if the Braves can go out there and maybe steal a series in Los Angeles. That could be a jump starter. It's like, all right, we just beat the Dodgers.
Yeah,
like that's on the road and all those things. So if they're 0-7 on Wednesday night and we do a podcast, it's going to be hard to sell optimism. I can promise you that. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think the Braves are at least going to get one in LA. The math would tell you that too. Not just my feeling and my optimism, because I don't really have optimism, but it's more just context of being measured just to say, I don't believe the Braves are suddenly bad. I might be wrong. There's a chance I'm wrong. Like there's a chance the team's not very good. That's definitely possible too. But I do think that this is still a good team. And this weekend has not changed that, even if it was as brutal as it possibly could have been.
Yeah.
Anything else to add, Scott?
Nothing to add. I kept it PG on the show. I try not to cuss. I really do.
I was proud of you. We had some colorful messages back and forth during the game. We won't share those for public consumption, but there were some colorful messages. And by the way, not just Scott. I was involved in the colorful messages too. So, but we kept it on the rails. This is why we and look. All joking aside, I think there are probably a lot of podcasts that just would not have done a show. but we always do shows. We're not going to ever not do a show. Like we'll be here.
Rain or shine, win or lose. Yeah, man, we've done some dark podcasts over the years, and some really good ones too. And I think objectively, and God bless you if you were still listening an hour into this show, we really do appreciate it. We really appreciate it.
I do too.
But
yes.
Objectively, as frustrated as I was tonight, and I was pretty worked up, Brad. I don't get super worked up over regular season games as much as I used to.
March 30th, Scott Coleman just ready to run through a wall.
But objectively, my brain is telling me this team has too much talent, too much track record to not get it figured out. Just wake up, guys. Wake up. I'm sure they listen to this podcast on the team flight, Brad. Please let everyone know that we at Hammer Territory have asked them to wake up. I think the entire fan base would like to see that, and maybe a trip down to the Dodgers against the Goliaths of baseball will kind of help get them going, and maybe they'll have a couple balls bounce their way and they can get a couple of wins in LA. It would really, really make for a pleasant flight back home on Wednesday night. If they could win one, even two of these games would go a long way.
Strongly agree. And we will have shows this week. I'm not exactly sure when the next one will be, but in the next few days, we will have a podcast as we always do. So please go ahead and click the subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform. Audio-wise, that's places like Apple, Spotify, Overcast, etc. We're also on YouTube if you want to watch Scott Coleman's shining face as he discusses Braves baseball. You can do that there at YouTube. Please like the show on there. Subscribe, tell your friends. Scott, people can find you where on social media?
I am at Scott Coleman 55.
Bear down, everyone. Bear down, go blue. By the way, it was for all the excitement about our 4 teams making the Sweet 16, none of them did very well after that. Now, I will say Sean's team and Steven's team won one game. My team and your team did not win a game after that. But hey, all 4 teams, Sweet 16.
Yeah,
we did it.
We'll take that. Batting 250. The Braves aren't hitting 250, Brad, but our
they are. They certainly are not. No more. I just wanted to slip it in there to say we were thinking that maybe one of us would make Final Four. No, it didn't happen. All 4 1 seeds. All right, everybody, please subscribe to the podcast. Tell your friends about the show. We appreciate you listening. As Scott said, we really do appreciate you checking out the podcast and staying with us through thick and thin, rain or shine. And we'll have more later on this week. So please stay tuned. We'll see you all next time.